Jodie, I'm so excited to be chatting with you today and talking all
Same.
about glowing up. Today, yes, I've already given your bio. Everyone's impressed. We're all like, wait a minute,
Thank you.
how do I get to Sony? Like, how is that
Thank you.
where is that pivot? How am I going
Yeah.
to do that? So everybody already knows who you are and are just in awe, like I am. So, but I like to start the conversation by asking everyone to introduce themselves. Like, tell us what we feel
hmm
like you feel
hmm
like we should know about Jodie Taylor.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting and thrilling. Um, as you know, my name is Jody, but I'm the daughter of two Jamaican immigrants. Grew up in Massachusetts in the suburbs, and I think that's where it's really important for me to note that because I think that is also like the impetus for a lot of my ultimately how I end up in diversity work is because I was hyper conscious of race and belonging and otherness at a really young age, being one of the few young Black girls in a Massachusetts suburb prep school. So grew up like in a hyper Christian immigrant family. And then went off to college in Chicago in the Midwest, and so have a foundational experience in the Midwest, and then moved to New York, where I feel like I can say I'm a New Yorker because I've been here for a decade, but I don't know if the girls will let me, but I will let me. So I'm a New Yorker in some aspects of it, and also so I'm a senior leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion work at Sony Music, and have been in senior leadership roles prior to that at a startup, and then also worked in tech and worked in banking and all of these other industries. And also now a content creator. And I think I was always so hesitant to call myself a creative because I think that has a very specific connotation and a very specific identity that people align with. And I think transparently also having immigrant parents, being a creative or creator was not what you were trying to be. They were like, you can be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, but creative, what at? So that is not at all what was going on for me. But I'm embracing that title and I'm really excited around being able to sort of lean into that storytelling and creative narration, especially through different platforms that I'm exploring.
There is so much to unpack. I have to restrain myself because I already want to derail everything we talked about to just dive into this. But I want to say that I hope this goes well. I hope you want to come back because
Of course.
I really want to do a panel
Oh,
on
amazing.
a couple things. Women who grew up around predominantly white areas. I'm
Mm.
from upstate New York.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a thread for us. I
Oh.
see it all the time. We all
Mhm.
end up in some kind of version of diversity work. A lot of us, which is like some of my background.
Yeah.
West Indian
Mhm.
children of
Mhm.
immigrants. I'm a child
Mhm.
of an immigrant,
Mhm.
West Indian immigrant.
Mhm.
And there's a thread. I've had a couple of us on the podcast, and I'm like, I want us to have a big powwow and then
Oh my
about
gosh.
creativity, our journey to coming back to ourselves and being creatives,
Yeah,
which
I
if
love
you
that.
have these experiences, that gets stomped out pretty quick. It's not that it wasn't,
Mhm.
my parents were very supportive with me being a creative on the side,
Yeah. Yeah.
not as a life. Like
Yeah.
I can't even imagine telling my parents I want to be a content creator.
Yeah.
That's hilarious, you know?
I can't imagine either. It's so funny. Well, I won't ask, but my mom sometimes will be like, so can you send me some of your TikToks? I'm like, you were the main one who was not into this at first. But yeah, it's
My
interesting
mom's
how
the same
sometimes they
way.
come around. Yeah.
Same way. My mom's on the YouTube. She's like the only one commenting at this
Yeah.
point, being like, love you. And it's so obvious. Like she has the same last name as me. So it's like, hey, mom, thanks for loving the videos. Like she's definitely come around. It is super supportive.
Yeah.
But there is, I feel like, a very commonality
hmm
to all of us
Yes,
that,
for
and we
sure.
find ourselves in these spaces and kind of attract each other. So
hmm
that is like my next collaboration with you, Jody,
Oh,
is
I
going to
love.
be
I love. We need it. It'll be healing, honestly, more than anything.
it will be healing.
Yeah.
And it does in some ways dovetail into what I
hmm
really want to start talking to you
hmm
about, which is this podcast for me
hmm
was it's really a journey to coming back to myself. Like this is what the podcast is about. And it's about helping other people come back to themselves and find themselves and celebrate that. And along the way, there's been some real spectacular
hmm
detours. And
hmm
some of those have been in what I like to call struggle, opting into struggle. And a lot of that comes from the legacy of trying to be great, trying to overachieve, shaming myself for different parts of myself. And so for you, just in general, that concept of opting out of struggle, how have
mm
you kind of done that? And how does that relate to you? Because we're here to talk about glowing up today.
Yeah.
And so how does that relate to you coming to this realization or coming to this belief system around the glow up?
Yeah. So I think of this in like two parts. So I'm a quitter and I like very much
Me
wear that
too.
banner. Yes.
Girl, can't nobody quit like Kelley. I don't know about
Oh.
this, Jodie. We might have a quit off. Like, I don't know. Like, can't nobody quit like me. What are you talking about? What are you
Oh,
talking about?
I love quitting. I'm like, actually, this ain't serving me. I'm out. Bye.
Me
Relationships, jobs, people. Like, so I'm a quitter. And I like wear that very proudly. Like, I'm not someone who's like, oh, just because no, I'm not married to a narrative about myself. Like, I leave things the second I'm not liking it. So as I was thinking about like, what does it mean to like opt out of struggle? It was difficult for me because the moment I'm uncomfortable, I'm like, I'm gonna pass on this. I'm out. And so I also had to learn what like opting out of struggle and what is like the what is a precipice for me? Like what is my threshold? Because I'm someone who, and this could also be a different type of trauma where as soon as it gets a little bit uncomfortable, I think there's people who are committed to a narrative and committed to staying in because they don't know anything else. And like they have become so comfortable in a state of discomfort that they're able to like push through things. I am not. So the moment I'm starting to not like something, I'm out. So I had to learn what a threshold is and being able to sit in discomfort. And I really thought a lot about this when it came to my previous job, where I was the head of diversity at a startup with like 5,000 people and 25,000 independent contractors. So it was a pretty large role. And within month 6, I was like, I hate this job. I'm ready to leave. And I started applying to new jobs. I ended up staying there for almost 3 years. But month 6, I was ready to go. And why I'm really glad, and it was such like a serendipitous opportunity because I just couldn't find a job that was the right fit. It just was in the wrong city. The pay wasn't right. I didn't connect with the manager. So I ended up staying almost 2.5 years longer than what I had planned to. And what I learned from that experience is like, you really can't leave before the lesson. Like sometimes you just have to stay in the thing before and understand what the concept of diminishing returns was. And I wasn't at the point of diminishing returns. Like I had so much I needed to learn in this experience, and leaving at 6 months would have sold myself short. And now the role that I'm in now, which is great and wonderful, I would not have been able to be effective in this role had I left at 6 months. There were so many different points I had to navigate. I had to learn how to lead through layoffs. I had to learn how to lead through a truncated budget. We ended up going public. And so leading through an IPO, all of those things happen. And I'm able to bring so many of those experiences into this role. And so I understand and I'm very comfortable leaving at the point of struggle. But what I think I needed to work on in terms of opting out of struggle or opting out of narratives. And I think there are other ways that will connect to the glow up. But what I had to learn in certain moments was, one, what is the lesson that I need to extract from this discomfort? And at what point is it diminishing returns before I need to exit? And then the second part of that, in terms of like the struggle and what that means to glow up, the entire glow up journey for me, I know we say this very like colloquially and like it's like funny and kitschy, like leveling up, it girl, glow up. And I use those terms a lot because I think it connects with people and people instantly know what I'm talking about. But for me, my glow up journey was really the impetus behind it was me being deep in therapy, and I shaved my head and all of those things. And that then sparked the glow up process because I began to learn when I aligned to my authentic self, when I began to do things for me that served me, that I was excited about. For example, I used to have the hair that everyone said was cute and all of that. I went to the salon and I shaved my head, and everyone told me, don't do it, don't do it. And I was like, I want to have ownership. I want to own something of my identity. I feel like I'm always leasing parts of myself out and adhering to what people say I should look like and what job I should have. But this I can have ownership of. And so I shaved my head, and I kind of um, began to create this instant magnetism that started to surround me. People treated me different, related to me different. I related to myself different when I started to lean into things that were authentic. And part of my authentic code, that's what really started the glow up journey, was like when I started to lean more into me, then life opened up in such a beautiful way. And I was like, oh, I want more of this. And I want to learn how to do this. And like, how do I structure this? So the glow up, though it sounds like, oh, I just want to like, look better and feel better and be hot and be all of this. And sometimes I'll use those terms, hot, smart, rich, whatever. But in reality, it's like really realigning to your authentic self and designing your life in a way that feels intentional, that you feel secure about, that you're happy about, that you're excited about.
That's beautiful. And there's a lot to unpack as you kind of
Mm.
came to that that realization and in those two different parts about opting out of
Mhm.
struggle and how that relates to the glow up. One, to recap something that you really brought out, which is why I was interested in having you on the
Mhm.
show. Like I'm all about like making yourself look better and feel better and
Mhm.
all those things, but that's not what Black Girl Burnout's about. You can
Mhm.
trust me if you if you look at my Instagram, you know that's not what I'm not in a place to be able to teach anybody about that. Having said that,
Yeah.
though, what it comes to me is that
Mhm.
the glow up is not an aesthetic, it's
Mhm.
an alignment.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
the phrase that came to me as you explained that.
I love that.
And part of that alignment may be an aesthetic. Let me be very
Mhm.
clear. It may
Mhm.
be shaving your hair, it may
Yeah.
be blow drying your hair and
Yeah.
putting a straightener, relaxer
Yep.
in it. It may be all of those things. Like that is, I'm not diminishing that as
Mhm.
an option. But when we get away from aesthetics and we get
Mhm.
into alignment, everything else about that comes through.
Yep.
That was the one point that
Yeah.
really resonated with me as you were speaking that came
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And then with opting out of struggle, quitting is struggle in its
Mhm.
own right, right?
Mhm.
It's not
Mhm.
opting out of struggle isn't just being able to be like, I leave, I'm
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
It is about also in struggle is this learning to surrender. And that's what I
Mhm.
had to learn for
Mhm.
myself. Like, cause I can't, like I said, can't nobody quit like Kelley can
Mhm.
quit. I don't know, Jodie. We might have to, we
We
might
might
have
have
to
to, we have
go
to, yeah.
go story for story.
Yeah.
But it was that surrender
Yeah.
lesson of understanding that opting out of struggle was surrendering to the fact
Mhm.
that there's something to learn in every opportunity and
Mhm.
discovering in the surrender where the threshold is.
Mhm.
What is a
Mhm.
true quit? What is quitting out of avoidance and what is
Oh,
quitting out of alignment?
yeah.
Back to the
Yeah.
alignment
That's
piece,
good.
right?
Yeah, that's
I
good.
now quit out of alignment. Can't nobody quit as quick as Kelley can when the alignment ain't right,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that's good.
But I did have to let go of the quitting out of
Mhm.
avoidance and still am
Mm.
healing and working on that.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. The quitting out of avoidance is such a strong one. And I had parents that were very supportive of my quit. And they were very intentional about particular things in my life. Like I had to go to this particular school and da, da, da. But I would try ice skating for like a week and I'd be like, "Oh, I actually don't like it." But yeah, I missed out on like the building up of the like dexterity to sort of withstand some really challenging and like sticky things. So quitting just became my default because I'm like, oh, well, if I didn't like ice skating, or I wasn't immediately good at ice skating, I would just quit. And so learning, and I think the lesson in all of this is just figuring out what your authentic code is. And I think that was the hardest part for me. And I think particularly as children of immigrants, especially girl daughters, as my parents would
Mhm.
call it, we have, or I can speak for myself, I was rewarded a lot on achievement and appearance. And so that then began to create my entire framework and reference of who I was. So I didn't do things because I liked them. I did things because it would elicit praise and validation. And so when you then go into your 20s and 30s operating that way, and that's why therapy was so therapeutic for me, because I remember she stopped me and she's like, "Well, what do you like? Like you're always saying like should, but what about what do you think about this?" And it was like an aha moment where I was like, "I don't know what I like because I've never been able to like create the opportunity where I was able to interrogate that for myself." I went to this school because it was the best school I got into. I took this job because it would look good on my LinkedIn resume. I wore these types of clothes because that's what was, online at the time, but I never really got a sense of like authenticity about me. I didn't have and it bled into so many other areas of my life, but I didn't have any ridges to me. I just was like this veneer of a person. And so I couldn't get back into alignment because I didn't even know what alignment looked like. And I think it was like an excavation process of like, all right, let's start from the beginning. And there was a period of exploration of like, I'm going to try this and I'm going to try that. And I'm going to see if I like this and see if I like that. And really just getting in touch and be like understanding who I was to the core without hearing the external voices or the people pleasing parts of me or the shoulds or the this will look good on a LinkedIn or an Instagram post. And so the process of alignment, I think, and figuring out true alignment outside of the noise and the voices, I think has been like that honestly has been the glow up journey for me.
Which makes beautiful, perfect sense. And you said about really unlocking your authentic code. And so when we come back, I want to dive into that. How did
Mhm.
you do that? How did you now come up with this framework that you are now
Mhm.
educating thousands of women on via TikTok and content
Yeah.
creation and all these other ways? I want to come back and talk about that as we pivot to understanding how you unlock
Mhm.
that authentic code for yourself.
Amazing.
So more to come.